Jason Falinski is a former Liberal MP who lost his seat in 2022 to a Teal independent running on a climate platform. He's our guest. Welcome.
Thanks, Patricia. How are you?
Well, it happened. We talked about it before. Now it happened. What's your assessment of the way the party's done this?
Look, I think this has not been ideal, obviously, because it looks like we were responding to the National Party. I think it's long overdue for us, whether you agree with the policy outcome or not, that the National Party really needs to stop behaving like this and forcing the Liberal Party into positions and the coalitions into positions, because it essentially looks like we are responding to standover tactics. So when Malcolm Turnbull gets on ABC radio and says what he says, it's like an easy hit, because it's just not the way that you should behave and operate in a coalition.
OK, so you're blaming the Nationals, but actually I've spoken to Conservatives who were pushing this on. They wanted it resolved pretty quickly. Is it really just the Nationals' fault?
No, I think there's a lot of Conservatives in the party who've held this view for quite some time. You did a program after the election where Andrew Hastie made it quite clear that he felt that net zero was something that we should reconsider having. So, yes, that's a position they've had. But these are discussions that you have in a sensible, calculated way where you weigh up all the pros and cons of doing what they're doing. And Dan Team was in the middle of that process when some people decided that they would make a big show of how brave and how hard they could beat their chess. The result of that is that we now have a position where we're not in favour of net zero, but according to the Nationals, we want to stay in Paris, which requires us to get to net zero but in the second half of this century. So we still need a net zero policy, but we haven't had the chance to provide an alternative or explain, quite frankly, why the net zero policy of the Labor Party is such a failure. And there is, fertile ground for us to do that. And people like me and people like Giselle Capitarian and Trent Zimmerman and Katie Allen and all the people, and Josh Frydenberg and all the people that could have been in that party room yesterday, if not for Climate 200, would have been able to make this point that, we can, instead of attacking each other, be attacking the manifest policy failures of the Labor Party and the left on this issue. OK, the language they've decided on is that net zero would be welcome if it somehow happened. I'm struggling with that. I won't lie, Jason Falinski. I'm pretty upfront. Viewers know that about me. What does that even mean? Like, we're happy if it happens, we're just not going to make it happen. Yeah, I mean, that's not an unfair question, PK, to which my answer is, and the answer that they should have, quite frankly, is that when you look overseas and you look at places, particularly in the United States, you have California that has all the mandates and all the subsidies and all the regulations and laws in place to encourage alternative energy or renewable energy, and you have Texas, which has none. So Texas has no government program around this. Now, it will surprise your audience to hear that Texas is producing 5 times as much renewable energy as California is at the moment. And on top of that, it will probably shock your audience to hear that carbon emissions have reduced more under Donald Trump than they have under Anthony Albanese. My point is not that Trump is better than Albanese or that Texas is better than California. My point is that when you take a free market approach or a market-based approach to these problems, history has shown us over and over again that it delivers better outcomes, faster and at cheaper prices. So if we can get the framework right, there is very little doubt that we will actually reduce emissions faster, we will reduce costs faster, we will have more grid reliability. But what we are getting from the National Party is a view that we don't like that Chris Bowen is subsidising solar. We'd much prefer those subsidies to go to coal-fired power stations, when in fact the truth is that subsidies should end full stop, because that's what's creating the problem. Well, let me take you to that, because this policy appears to really open the door to more coal subsidies, doesn't it? Well, let's not forget, Patricia, and once again, I don't mean to shock your audience, that the greatest subsidy for coal actually happened under this government with the support of the Teals when in November 2022 they voted for the Price Stabilisation Act, which has provided $3.1 billion to coal companies over that period of time. Something that never happened under the Abbott government, never happened under the Morrison government. Let us also not forget that carbon emissions reduced under the Morrison government, under the Turnbull government, under the Abbott government. They have gone up under the Albanese government with the support of the Teals.
I believe that the government should be absolutely quizzed, as you would know about me, but on the Liberal Party's issues, which is why I invited you, my friend, is this decision a disintegration of the Liberal Party, as some have labelled it? Are you really worried about what this means?
Well, I think the people who supported and advocated for this change in policy, need to tell us what they want it replaced with, because they haven't done that yet. You have suggested, and others have suggested, that they would like to replace it with removing subsidies for solar power to including subsidies for coal. And then I think on a political framework, those 28 MPs who stood up in the party room yesterday and advocated for this really need to explain to us how this gets us closer to winning government. Because if you are opposed to Chris Bowen's net zero plan, then could you please explain to us which votes you're winning by getting rid of this or by taking this approach? Because it's not clear to me that they've been able to do that. So, no, I'm not worried about the disintegration of the Liberal Party, but I am worried about the disintegration of our electoral hopes at the next election.
So what is your assessment? Does this make it harder for the Liberal Party to get closer to, possibly winning or just getting more seats?
I am yet to see a single piece of data that shows that anyone who wasn't voting for us in 2022 or 2025 is more likely to vote for us in 2028 on the basis of us removing net zero without having a credible plan to reduce emissions and ensure that the planet is still livable in the 22nd century.
How about to the argument, and I've heard it privately from many people on the right of your party who say, well, actually, we're bleeding votes to One Nation and that they're trying to address that concern. What's your response to that?
Well, Patricia, my response to that is that since those people started the arguments that they have started on the policies issues of which they have been talking about, particularly around immigration, particularly around industrial policy, particularly around getting rid of net zero, they have driven votes out of the Coalition's column into One Nation's column. They've done it. Pauline Hanson hasn't been doing anything to get votes into her column. That's what's been happening here. So I don't know, maybe I'm a simple person with simple ideas, but it would seem to me that if something is hurting you, you should probably stop doing it. And instead we just, this week we doubled down on it.
OK, you say that, but again, to challenge you, because it's the fair thing to do.
I welcome these challenges.
Well, it makes it more interesting. Their argument, they're not here. I'm making it for them, not advocating it.
And can I make that point? Can I make that point? If they want to make this argument, why don't they come forward and make this argument?
Well, they kind of have been coming out and trying to have a red-hot go. But what they're saying, one of their arguments, is that, you've taken net zero to 2 elections and you've been smashed. Hasn't worked, they say.
Well, I don't even actually know how to respond to that sensibly, other than to say that no one at either election was saying, oh, we thought that you went too far on climate change. In fact, quite the opposite. And look, election campaigns are decided on a multivariate range of reasons. So it would be unfair for me or for them or for you to point to a single reason and say, that's why we didn't win votes. However, it is quite clear to me that there are a whole cohort of people who are not voting for us at the moment because they have concerns about our attitude to taking action on ensuring that the planet is still livable into the future. Now, you can have all sorts of arguments about that, and I encourage people to have those arguments. But just saying we're going to get rid of net zero, we're not going to replace it with anything, isn't really treating those voters with a lot of respect.
Jason Falinski, we really have been talking about your political party for so long now, haven't we? Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.